We've seen claims that men are the true romantics, and women are happier single. Now, Vox says single men are miserable in this article titled, Why Are Single Men So Miserable? By Ali Volp, and it's written by a woman. Time for a male perspective. But before we find out what a woman has to say about men's terrible social skills, be sure to give this video a like, comment what you think along the way, subscribe for cultural commentary and rants from a man caught between generations, and last but certainly not least, feel free to join me at the Zillennial Nexus Point Discord. Link will be in the description below. Alright, let's see what Allie has to say about single men being so miserable. All his life, Shay Mandley had a clear vision for his future. A wife who would see him through the ups and downs of life. 6, maybe 7 kids to whom he would pass on life lessons. So far, things haven't panned out. That's life for ya. I actually had something going on before I record this video that I'm not ready to talk about, but let's just say it has me really frustrated with myself and so much else. He's single and has been for about 3 years after ending a 6-month relationship. He's disillusioned both by online dating and how tough it can feel to approach women IRL. No longer the no is the worst thing that could happen, says Mandley, a 31-year-old living in Minneapolis. It's almost like a humiliation tactic if you want to introduce yourself. Well, a lot of women have been saying, don't approach us IRL. And I can agree that there are some times that aren't particularly good. Like I said before, things like grocery stores and restaurants, people are there to just go in, get their things, and get out. Well, GBDR said it, but he used naughtier language than me. And he's right. The social fabric of America has been ripped apart. There are very few third places. Okay, this is going to get a little depressing to think about. Let's get back to the article. The gulf between Mandley's goals and his reality has affected his well-being. He's lonely, he says. He yearns for intimacy. When he looks at all the couples gathered round the table at Friendsgiving, he wonders what it would be like to have someone to experience it all with. At times, he wonders if he'll ever meet anyone. I feel a void, Mandley says. I feel lonely that I don't have a companion. Sometimes that may give me a tough exterior, because I don't want to project into the world that I'm lonely. The first step is admitting it. Like how I admitted to feeling kind of down as I record this, but I'm not going to let that stop me from making videos for my favorite YouTube audience. Not everyone is like me who can look at romantic relationships as a nice little bonus if they happen, but not the end of the world if they don't. And hey, he was at a Friendsgiving gathering, which means he's got friends. Manley is among a growing cohort of young, often straight, unpartnered men who wish they weren't. According to a Pew Research Center, 63% of men under 30 are single, compared to 34% of women. He's over 30. Why are we citing the... Well, I guess he's close enough. And yeah, that is a massive gap. Some people say it's because women are in their 20s are dating older men because they're more well established, or that they're going around with the same guy. Personally, I think there's a little bit of both going on, and despite more movies and shows pushing it than ever, the whole 20-something-year-old guy with a older woman, whether it be the movie Baby Girl or what's another one? Oh yeah, that Anne Hathaway movie from last year from Prime Video. The Idea of You on Prime Video. I need to fact check this. The Idea of You. Yeah, that was the one. To recap, Anne Hathaway, now in her 40s, played a single mom who got into a romantic relationship with a 20-something-year-old guy who's a famous singer and her daughter is a fan of. Go check it out if you'd like, but getting back to the article, half of these men are searching for a committed relationship or casual dates, compared to 35% of single women, bucking against stereotypes painting single women as desperate for romantic partnership and men as content eternal bachelors reticent to be tied down. Recent research has shown that single women are overall more satisfied with their lives compared to single men. Just like that women's health article I went over some time ago said. And like that Scientific American one I went over back in June. Yeah, honestly, one size does not fit all. I mean, I'm at peace. I'm a sober cell who refuses to let a woman who drinks into my life under any circumstances, no matter how lonely I get. And I guess if I start to feel lonely, I typically will remember that and I'll be like, you know what? This situation isn't so bad. Yeah, that's what it means for protecting your peace. Getting back to the article, another study from Germany found that men were less likely to initiate a breakup, were less satisfied with being single, and wanted a partner more than women. Partnered gay men, according to a Chinese study, had better mental health than those who were single. Other research has found unpartnered gay men associate being single with loneliness. Men are less likely to initiate divorce or even a breakup because of the it's cheaper to keep her trope. Well, it's not a trope, it's real life. For a lot of people. Some people. It definitely beats getting everything taken in a divorce. Or rather, they feel stuck or they typically feel like they don't have a lot of options. Much has been made of the plight of young men recently. They're falling behind women in education, employment, independence, social connection. Could the lack of romance in their lives and their yearning for it be the key to understanding their dissatisfaction? Or are they unlucky in love because they lack the tools to build a happy life with meaningful connections in myriad ways? It turns out rigid norms around masculinity may have a self fulfilling effect, both contributing to unhappiness with being single while making it more difficult to find a partner, too. So, I'm gonna cast a prediction here. Men not being as capable of being emotionally open is gonna be the reason that she gives. I am calling it now. Kind of like how Better Bachelor pointed out that the reason a lot of women leave men who show their feelings the way that they keep saying they want them to is because it gives them the ick. How men become emotional castaways. Being single is hardly a bad thing in and of itself. Plenty of people happily choose to live unpartnered, but many men see romantic relationship as their primary emotional outlet, which makes lacking one particularly unmooring. In his years of working with men in therapy, Frederick E. Rabinowitz, a psychology professor at the University of Redlands, has noted a lot of guys tend to put all their emotional eggs in one basket, meaning they expect their partner to be their social be-all end-all, one person with whom they confide in, problem solve, joke around, do the deed with, and do chores. Well, let's go over all of this. Yes, a partner should be someone you can confide in. You do need to work together to problem solve and joke around with. And it's reliable bedroom fun, I'm going to say that. In most situations, unless there's something like some advice articles I've skimmed through recently that talked about how a guy was talking about how his girlfriend or wife was having trouble doing the deed. And then there are also dead bedroom marriages like the Burnhams in American Beauty. And then the chores, well, in a traditional arrangement, and I'm just saying this is traditional, I'm not saying that I personally think this, but in a traditional arrangement, the woman typically does the chores around the house while the man is out doing the work and bringing home the bacon. Again, in a traditional setting, I'm not saying that it has to be that way. It's just a way that it typically was for a long period of time, mostly in the 50s and 60s before women were really brought into the workforce in droves. Frederick Rabinowitz here, he is not completely wrong about lots of guys putting all their emotional eggs in one basket. Plus, a lot of them stop seeing their friends as often because their girlfriend or wife pulls them away from them because whether it's something like the guy who commented on my Valentine's Day special who said, people in relationships have more stuff to do, or the girlfriend or wife is just isolating him, making him all hers, maybe not in an abusive way, maybe in a very abusive way. I don't know. I have been single my entire life, so I might not be the best person to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Getting back to the article, this is mostly because, as boys, they've been taught that talking about their emotions in contexts is, in most contexts, is weak or unmasculine. What they learn to do is just keep it inside, Rabinowitz says. To fill the emotional void, men seek a romantic partner, the one person with whom society permits men to be totally vulnerable. Okay, I can agree that, yeah, we do teach Stoicism to too hard an extent. I think Stoicism can be healthy. I completely disagree with it being called unhealthy, but I also can recognize that, yes, men should be able to show a healthy amount of emotion. Like, I'd say it is fair to cry at a funeral. If you make fun of a man or woman for crying at a funeral, you're a horrible person. If a man has some other extreme emotional situation, like the thing I was dealing with earlier, I'll admit I actually was this close to breaking down in tears because it was a pretty drastic change that I have to deal with. It was that intense. Ultimately, I processed it, and it's just one of the stresses that one has to deal with when it comes to adulting. If a guy breaks down crying over the slightest things, like, let's say I'm at the supermarket and they don't have something I really wanted. Unless there is a lot of horrible things that led up to that moment that went on throughout the day, that is not emotionally healthy. Back to the article. A tendency to bottle up emotions has implications for both romantic and platonic relationships. When adolescent boys learn the tenets of manhood, strength, stoicity, independence, intimate friendship can seem at odds with these ideals. Thus, platonic relationships may become more surface level, focusing on shared activities over heartfelt connection. Moreover, men who never learned to speak about their emotions, a core element of romance, may also find it difficult to date, says Ronald Levant, an emeritus professor of psychology at the University of Akron. Emotional intimacy requires that you be open about how you're feeling, he says. And if men can't do that, they're not going to be able to form relationships. Men can easily become emotional castaways, struggling to open up with friends and potential romantic partners. Yeah, emotional intimacy would require you to be open about how you're feeling to some extent, or I believe the pickup videos I've watched talked about how You had to get right to the point of wanting to ask her out. Like, I think a lot of this emotional intimacy about deeper stuff would come later in relationships. So really, it's more of a maintenance problem than an acquisition problem, might be the best way to put it. A lack of social support has myriad negative effects, regardless of gender. Higher risk of mortality, depression, poor sleep quality, weakened immune system, anxiety, and low self-esteem. Having a network of people to rely on has been found to strengthen a person's coping abilities and quality of life, even while stressed. Among single gay men, social support from friends and family contributed to higher well-being. It's also true that for men, having just one person in your corner, your romantic partner, does appear to be transformative, contributing to overall mental health and happiness. Married men have better mental and physical health than unwed ones, perhaps due to the fact that in heterosexual relationships, their wives might undertake the bulk of the housework and remind them to go to the doctor. I have witnessed that personally with my parents. The wife nagging the husband to go to the doctor, or sometimes outright making an appointment for them. Okay, I don't think my mom did that specifically, but she has given my dad a hard time for not going to the doctor or for canceling an appointment at one point or another. Bulk of the housework, though, that's a different story. My dad does a decent amount of housework. It's not all one-sided, but they don't keep score either. I'm just going to leave it there. A man in a relationship may have someone say, "Do you really want to have that third beer? Haven't you had enough? Or shouldn't you have more vegetables with your meals rather than just pork chops?" Says Levant, the author of The Problem with Men, Insights on Overcoming Traumatic Childhood from a world-renowned psychologist. Yeah, it's called having checks and balances, and I'd say, well, personally, I would say that a good friend wouldn't encourage any drinking of alcohol in the first place, but that's just me. But even a friend can keep someone in check with that. The diet, I don't know, at least on a daily basis. Obviously, if you're out and about, you're probably not gonna be eating the healthiest thing anyway. Let me put it to you this way. When I went to Blaze Pizza with my friends after Jaws the Mugar Omni Theater, none of us gave each other a hard time about the fact that we were having pizza. Back to the article. Given the obvious pros, men may feel like they have a lot to gain by partnering up. According to an as of yet unpublished findings from Elaine Hohen, a researcher at the University of Toronto, simply expecting that a relationship will bring you happiness may be enough to make it true. Hohen and her colleagues found that when singles who believed romantic relationships will improve their lives actually pair off, they are indeed happier. It doesn't seem like it's backfiring, Hohen says, where you want it so badly and then you get it and it's not what you want it to be. Yeah, I would say that they probably just feel elated that they're in a relationship now. But yeah, going to the point of you get it and it's not what you want it to be. Yeah, you can set unrealistic expectations and then when you're hit with reality, yeah, it's a different story. For so long, Reuben Woodall was constantly reminded of what he was missing out on when he was single. Not only did he feel like romantic relationships were put on a pedestal in culture and media, but heterosexual depictions of ideal love only made him feel like queer love was unattainable. Gay relationships are often seen as short-lived, lustful encounters rather than meaningful endeavors, Woodall, a 29-year-old who lives in Bristol, UK, says in an email. So pursuing a romantic relationship could feel hopeless. At times, Woodall was empowered by singleness, other times resentful and despondent, thinking he'd be alone forever. During the 3 years he was single, Woodall focused on improving his life by pursuing hobbies, rather than wallowing in the pain of singleness, he says. Now, in a new relationship, his outlook has transformed. My problems feel smaller, he says, knowing I have someone to hold, confide in, and encounter life alongside means a blanket of comfort has fallen over every experience. Romance is inherently exciting, and that permeates through everything. Yeah, like I say, a romantic relationship is a nice little bonus if it happens. The icing on the cake, where if it's not there, it's still good. And yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with Woodall focusing on pursuing hobbies rather than wallowing in the pain of singleness. Now, there are mixed opinions on whether doing hobbies will actually lead to meeting a romantic partner. Aaron Clary claims that it can happen, but Raymond of Raymond Thoughts and Minds says, no, it won't. Tim Pool recently said something about how, and he's saying this, not me, most women are not into hobbies and such. Again, his words, not mine. I will say this, David from How to Beast has a really great point of trying new things and then having something interesting to talk about when you ask a woman out and you are on that first date with her. Yeah, it gives you something to talk about. Like, I could talk about this YouTube channel. I could talk about my outings to Boston. I could talk about Project Signal Shift and how I literally researched where I went for a month to see if there was a correlation and causation between going out places and my YouTube channel doing better. Masculine ideals shape relationships. Beyond the benefits relationships confer, another reason some men may struggle with perpetual singledom, traditional views of masculinity about what a man could be and should be, having a particular having a partner aligns with this hetero-masculine archetype that men should be sexually active, have a romantic relationship, and head up a family, and is seen as a status symbol for men, especially if their partner is conventionally attractive, according to Hohen. Yeah, that is definitely something a lot of people care about. Sometimes a little too much about other people to some extent. So, for example, there were a few comments in the single men living at home video that some of which I had to delete because they were just being unpleasant and while also proving my video's point, though, I will give them credit for that. Yeah, unfortunately, I had to delete one comment that referred to someone as, quote, inkwell behavior, only he didn't use the euphemism. And I've officially had to hide two people from the channel from that as a result of that because they care a little too much. So what I really want to know is to anyone out there who is angry about someone else being single, or if you look at them as anything lesser, like if you look at single men as lesser, I have to ask, and please say this in the comments below, why do you care? Back to the article. Not being able to embody this archetype might conjure up feelings of self-consciousness, internalized homophobia, and shame, says Hohen. In his experience, Rabinowitz, the men's therapist, has found single guys tend to blame themselves for their circumstances. It's like, what's wrong with me? Why aren't I attracting women? I'm not sure I know how to be in a relationship that works, he says. Well, maybe they just don't want to admit to the external factors. Now, there are some things you can do to become more attractive, but to an extent, it's women having much less realistic expectations, comparatively speaking. Men can have their unrealistic expectations too, with expecting her to just stay at home and take care of the kids and be a trad wife in general. Like in this day and age, I'm sorry, that is a wildly unrealistic expectation. You are extremely unlikely to find a woman who is willing to do that. And I say the same to women who want men with All three sixes. 6 feet tall, 6 inches, six-figure salary. Now you can want a trad wife if you are a man, or you can want the 666 guy if you are a woman and feel that strongly about it. But you have to accept the consequences of severely limiting your dating pool, just as I have accepted the severely limited dating pool that I have as a result of being a sober cell. Research supports the idea that men feel deficient without a partner. They attribute self-consciousness as one of the top reasons for their singleness, along with poor flirting skills, bad looks, and shyness. As a woman, I was really surprised by that, because I don't think that's why women are not interested in you, Hohen says. Single men seem to be missing the point when it comes to what it is that women are looking for, and I think they're going the opposite way, honing in on the Andrew Tate-like mindset, or the inceldom, and doubling down on grasping onto these straws of masculinity when they feel like women are just rejecting me because I'm bad at this thing. Again, a lot of them probably have unrealistic standards. Not all of them have the ultra unrealistic standards, but a lot of them are convinced that they can get the Giga Chads, or they might not mind sharing a Giga Chad. I don't know. I'm not a woman. Just like Allie, the author of the article, isn't a man, but she's writing about this stuff about men. When men feel like they have very little to offer a romantic partner, they might start to shift the blame away from themselves into the very object of their desires. Oh, here we go. Nowhere else is this more apparent than the manosphere. Hyper-masculine quarters of the internet, home to the likes of influencers like Tate and Jordan Peterson, focused on misogyny and outdated sexist stereotypes of relationships. Further, for these followers, women are weak and selfish, and must be dominated in relationships. A recent survey from consumer research firm GWI found Gen Z men were almost 3 times as likely to prioritize dominance as a personality trait compared to boomers. This, of course, is anathema to many young women, prospective partners, who are only becoming more socially progressive. The gender political gap keeps on widening. A new model of masculinity. Male disillusionment is a tightly wound knot composed of the pressure to adhere to traditional masculine ideals, socialization, and media narratives that perpetuate these stereotypes. There's also just the universal human longing for companionship and connection. Instead of denying their feelings and need for intimate connections, men could embrace friendship and camaraderie, and make attempts to be vulnerable with a diverse array of people. Not only would men feel more emotionally fulfilled, but they'd be better practiced in opening up to potential romantic partners, says Rabinowitz. They'd also probably be happier. Yeah, I'd say embrace friendship and camaraderie, but crying should be reserved for extreme situations. Shedding the rigid structures of masculinity requires bucking against socialization. It means, for men, giving yourself permission to be sad, to yearn, to be disappointed, to deeply feel without shame, Rabinowitz says. It also means taking responsibility for how their actions might contribute to their situation. Instead of blaming women for rejecting them, they could better pinpoint where they went wrong, not showing curiosity for their date, or being misaligned on values. What I find is that once guys start feeling comfortable with themselves, they attract partners, they attract dates, they attract people to them, Rabinowitz says. My philosophy has been get to know yourself really well so you know your strengths and weaknesses, and you know the different parts of yourself. Yeah, I know some people aren't going to like this, but I actually agree that you got to blame yourself before you blame others or the situation around you. Like, I could blame the pandemic for not really getting far in the relationship with Mississippi. Go watch my previous video about her. To help them untangle this knot of masculinity, Rabinowitz hopes men can integrate different qualities from various aspects of masculinity to forge a new framework, rather than feel like they must be strong and domineering head of the family, or relinquish masculinity entirely. Can men adopt qualities that blend strength with openness? What kind of partner might this kind of man attract? Well, I think it'll really depend. One size does not fit all. Personally, I think there is some strength in choosing to be single or not letting it consume you. But yeah, I would say be open where it matters most is what I would do. Like the thing I was referring to earlier that I'm not going to mention here at this moment, I would not be against being able to talk to a girlfriend or wife about that. Like how frustrating it was. That includes being open and vulnerable and compassionate, but also being strong and having strong values. And working hard and pressing through problems and taking responsibility, Rabinowitz says. It's not one or the other. Again, one size does not fit all. In his lowest moments, Mike, a 32-year-old who lives in Portland, looked to the manosphere for advice. Constantly preoccupied with his singleness, Mike, who declined to share his last name in order to speak about his love life, felt depressed most of the time, and Tate, in Peterson's masculine, vaguely self-improving message, appealed to him. You got to be a man. Just worry about making money, getting rich, Mike says. And from that point on, you can pick all the girls you want. I'm just gonna say it. He's not completely wrong. Financial stability of any kind makes you more romantically viable in her eyes. I wouldn't center my life around money because what's the point if you're not going to use it to actually enjoy it? But as Mike made an effort to foster social connections through a local badminton league, he realized very few women cared about how much money he made. Being a good friend, an upbeat, socially engaged person, is what will attract a partner. His value didn't come from his height, or his salary, his looks, or the car he drives, he says. My value is more based off how I make other people feel, Mike says. Do I make them feel happy? Do they like being around me? But on that note, I'm going to wrap it up here for the video. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this. Be sure to give this video a like as well. Subscribe for cultural commentary and rants from a man caught between generations. And last but certainly not least, feel free to join me at the Zillennial Nexus Point Discord. Link will be in the description below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.